vocal sacs to produce a bell-like sound. They do.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
the legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASU
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
We appreciate you staying here with us on Global Television. I'm Uyag Mofwegwe, and this is Global Morning. We're live in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, and thank you for staying with us here on Global TV so we can have conversations around very topical issues that are right on the front burner. And I quickly would love to mention that again today I'm joined by Chidima Jewesin, my colleague. Chidima, it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Uyi. It's
Great.
good to be here with you again. Good morning, this morning, viewers at home. You're welcome to the show.
All right, so I want us to, there's a whole lot to talk about. It's a Friday. They say a great weekend begins on a Friday. I'm sure yours is starting off on a very great note as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, but then it doesn't change the fact that there are several issues we should be talking about on the show this morning, whether it's the Nigeria Republic, whether it's Gabon, and all the changes we're now seeing in some countries across Africa, by way of response to the coup that happened in Gabon just 2 days ago. But then we also have our domestic challenges at home. Very topical issues that we should be talking about. The president has been assuring and reassuring with regards to the 8 priority areas of his renewed hope agenda, whether it's economy or anti-corruption efforts, infrastructure, just building systems around critical areas of our national life and so on. And so forth. So as we wrap up this Friday, this weekend, business-wise, it's only common sense that we should again take a look at some of these issues this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add that, of course, we've been seeing a lot of drastic changes, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa these days. And I'd like to start with the president. Well, he said he was hitting the ground running, and it's obvious that he's been doing that pretty well. We've been seeing a lot of things happening in the country recently, some which have turned to be uncomfortable, inconveniencing. But how they say Nigerians, we are survivors. We would always survive this phase of the administration, but we look forward to seeing better days. And to the bigger scene, the African sphere, where we have the Niger and Gabon, which has also had a military coup just 2 days ago. Well, I think I would like to just keep my opinion to this coup thing.
Are you bothered about it? Because, just yesterday, for example, news, started coming out from if you like, all the way from Rwanda, and then you go again to even West Africa, Cameroon. We understand Paul Biya, who is a very focal element in conversations around sit-tight leadership across Africa. I mean, these two presidents had to rejig their security architecture.
Right.
I mean, at one point, they were laying off some top army chiefs.
Right.
I mean, security chiefs. At another point, they were reshuffling others. And experts have said, look, this is in quick response to what they've seen happen in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and more importantly and more recently in Gabon, all right? But then you're wondering, is it enough to reshuffle your military leadership? While, of course, you have even laid some off. Does that answer the question of how that more than ever before, Africa yearns for forward-looking, results-oriented, goal-focused leadership and governance?
Well, I think it's not enough reason to reshuffle your government. You know, there's this saying, a wicked man runs where no man pursues, and I think that's. Are
you saying these presidents are wicked?
Well, I'm not saying that, but I'm just stating the fact, right? I mean, you can see, just because there's a coup in Gabon and in Niger, you're already scared. So why are you scared? If you're sure, if you're confident about your leadership, I don't think things like this would scare you. If you believe you
are popular and your people love you, they want you to continue to lead them.
So why are you shuffling your government? It's, of course, because you are scared of some things that might come up. And really, I think it's enough reason for them to be scared, because for the Cameroon president, this is someone who is almost 90 years old and who's been in power for God knows when,
right? More than four decades?
I really don't, and I would quickly say this, that, you know, what people are saying, what people are calling military coup these days, I think it's just some form of revolution, right? Africans are beginning to, you know, take actions, you know, try to stand up for their rights, which is a good thing if you ask me.
But that still doesn't justify coups.
Of course, it doesn't justify coups, but you know, when things like this happen, it means people are tired of a particular system.
And that's realistic.
Right. People want accountability. People want to see a system that works, right? People want to be able to live in their country and feel safe and feel secured. But when they don't seem to be getting these things, things like this happen. It's just, I'm sorry to say, but it's just a cause and effect kind of situation. So this is an effect of causes, some things that has been going wrong over the years.
The repercussions are playing out in front of us.
Right.
I'm sure the brilliant point Chidima is making is just to say that he who must come to equity must come with clear hands.
Right.
I mean, let's look at Paul Biya and Paul Kagame. I mean, Paul Biya being the president of Cameroon, and Paul Kagame himself coming from a military background. I mean, he's not a stranger or a newcomer, all right, to revolutionary processes. I mean, we all know, if you look at the history, how he came into power. He's there for the 24th year now. He has seen both sides of the coin. He has seen commendation, whether it's on the continental level or, you know, beyond Africa. He has also seen a lot of bashing coming in. We've seen reports that suggest that he has been gagging opposition. He has not allowed dissent to breathe, as we say in this part of the world in recent times, all right? But people have not been also ignorant of some of the things he has done for his people. I mean, we have seen conferences, I mean, international conferences that have been moved from either Lagos or Abuja to Kigali in Rwanda just because they feel they were going to get a better deal there, because they felt it's more, if you like, security. I mean, they have relative security and peace there, all right? It's a saner environment by whatever assessment, or depending on who is doing the assessment. And then we're also seeing real time how that under his leadership, I mean, talking about Paul Kagame of Rwanda now, I mean, there has been this steady improvement in national cohesion. People see themselves first as Rwandans than saying you are a Tutsi or whatever it is. I mean, which is something we need to achieve going forward, where you are not seeing yourself from being before you see yourself from being from a particular region of the country, you're first of all seeing yourself as a Nigerian. I mean, look at how we treat ourselves back at home. He's an Orobo man. She's an Igbo lady. He's a Benin man. No, he's Hausa. No, he's a Yoruba man. No, he's a Fika man. You know, we are still disintegrated. We're still, if you like, partitioned along the lines of ethnicity. I mean, Paul Kagame has been able to close that gap very appreciably, very commendably in Rwanda under his leadership. All right, but the question people have been asking is he the only president that has capacity to lead the country?
Exactly.
If he dies today, God forbid that happens. I mean, if he gets to leave power for whatever reason, are you saying there's no Rwanda, whether at home or in the diaspora,
as good as he is,
or even better, that can lead the country? So these are questions that we must answer. And again, these coups, I mean, all of them, from Burkina Faso to Mali to Niger to Gabon, have blurred the definition of democracy now, at least in the African context. Because people are now saying that, I mean, come on, give me a break. What's the difference between a bunch of military officers who take power violently and someone who gets into power 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years, almost 50 years down the line, refuses to leave? The difference really, some people have argued, is that one is wearing uniform, I mean khaki as we call it, the other one is wearing suit and tie.
And I would also like to add that, honestly, recently, African democracy has seemed to be a bit fragile because, like you mentioned, there are people who have sat on power for years, for over 10 years, which isn't right. So there's really no difference between who wears a suit and who wears a military khaki.
I'm not the person who wears a suit, buddy.
Well, we're not talking about you here. Okay, so you get the story, right?
Right.
So I just feel like if things like this, if we can't trust our democratically elected presidents to bring us good results, maybe we should try some other methods.
Yeah, those methods have got to be healthy,
right,
within the ambit of the law, and ultimately must serve the overall interest of citizens. But just on a lighter note, somebody was saying that if you want to know, if you want to define, if you want a child, maybe a child in elementary, to define president, you shouldn't speak much of English. Just tell them Paul Biya. I don't know what that means, but I think it's a bit of sarcasm that comes with it, because there are people who are now between their between 40 and early 40s. The only president, talking about Cameroonian, the only president they have known is Paul Biya.
Right.
All right. Think about that for a second. That has got to sink in. You are at 40 already. There's so much around 40. So some people say a fool at 40 is a fool forever.
Right.
Others will say life becomes better at 40.
At 40, yeah.
So many things around
40.
All right. But now you're at 40. You have known only one president your entire life. In fact, if you happen to be the first child or the only child, it means as of when your dad and your mom met, Paul Biya was probably the president.
Right.
As of the day your dad was engaging your mom, Paul Biya was the president. Now you're 40. You have 3-4 children. Paul Biya is still the president. And there's no indication in sight that he's leaving anytime soon. All right. So Africa must come to equity with clean hands. I don't understand how we expect the global West to respect us as a continent.
Right.
54 countries on one continent. And for the most part, they all seem to be doing the same thing. Whether they are wearing agbada, khaki, or suits. Leadership must find some drastic transformation.
Right.
And that's why some people are beginning to have a ray of hope in the stance that President Bola Tinubu has been maintaining since the last 3 months or so that he assumed office, whether it's within the country Nigeria, where he is the president of the Federal Republic, or at the ECOWAS level, where he happens to have the privilege of service to be the chairman. But just before we talk too much, Chidima and I will take a break at this point. When we return, we will be taking a look at paper headlines for you. Do stay with us. Let's turn to the papers for you. We're starting with Daily Trust on the show this morning. Okay, let's see just 3 headlines beneath the nameplate here. Atiku to African leaders focus on disease that births cools, not symptoms. I mean, that's no-brainer. It means you have to deal with the problem from the roots, all right? Some people call it the root cause, all right? But he's saying deal with the issues, not the manifestations of those issues. And then you're asking yourself, what exactly, like Chidima and I were just chit-chatting about a while ago, what exactly are the causes of cool? I mean, they say there's no smoke without fire. For people to wake up in one country and then plot a coup, I mean, they stage a coup and then the coup comes to fruition, all right, and everybody goes haywire. And then you have another country somewhere where nobody's thinking about coup because systems are working, all right, people are accountable. There's, I mean, largely transparency. The law is functional. There's rule of law. The question is, I mean, unless we want to lie to ourselves, is there rule of law in virtually all the African countries? Because politicians only talk about the rule of law when it's convenient for them, when it's, I mean, when their interest is served. Ordinarily, they're not interested in rule of law. They just basically want to do whatever it is that serves their interest per time. And then when things go south, I mean, when it doesn't swing in their favor or in their direction, you see them touting rule of law. It's pretty much like what we also have in Nigeria. I mean, one person loses election, they say judiciary is biased against them, they say judiciary has been manipulated. And then the next day they win the election, I mean, they win in court, and they say, well, judiciary is the last hope of the common man. They suddenly become a common man the whole time. So, so the thing is, as they say, regardless of whose horse is gored, the rule of law has to be entrenched. In fact, former president, immediate president, past president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, had come under fire. That was in 2019, you know, when he said at the NBA national conference in Port Harcourt, in Rivers State, that the rule of law, I mean, that national security supersedes the rule of law. That became controversial because as important, as strategic, as pivotal, as critical as national security is, as a subject, as a principle, I mean, as whatever it is, it has to be subjected to the rule of law. Because people can hide under the guise of national security to commit havoc. Sometimes even in the name of a sitting president, in the name of a governor, they tell you it's national security. I mean, we're seeing people hide under this so-called national security to do a lot of, I mean, like my mom would say, they do and undo. But what right-thinking citizens are saying, what legal practitioners are saying, and of course what the law does say is that everybody is subject
to the rule of law.
The rule of law. So in most African countries, you don't have the rule of law. It's just one president waking up one morning and deciding what he wants to do. Whether it destroys the country or not, it doesn't matter. And now we are beginning to hear, I mean, unconfirmed reports that Gabon, for example, I mean, the president who has just been ousted and been arrested, I mean, in house arrest and kept in house arrest, is richer than the country. I mean, I said unconfirmed reports. I'm going to look that up after the show. But more importantly, if that is anything to go by, even though we're at this point taking it with a pinch of salt, it calls for reflection, right? It makes you want to sit down and ask yourself exactly, how did we get here?
Honestly, and I would add to that, I do think these things could be possible for a president to be richer than a country at large. I mean, that's really something to reflect about. Right? Okay, I don't know if you've probably seen videos going around where there were stacks of cash in bags of the aides to the president's son, not even the president's son. This is his aide having bags of cash in his apartment. How is that even possible? How do these people have so, I mean, it's alarming. It's just so alarming.
It is alarming, right?
And to quickly add to that, no, I saw an interview where Ali Bongo, the ousted president, granted an interview. Someone was asking him what does he think about having three tenures, like 3 terms as a president. Well, he in his response, he said, oh, he doesn't think 2 terms is sexy. That's what he said. He said, because in your second tenure, people think, oh, because you're leaving, so they can they feel you're weak at that point. They feel you can't do anything. They feel they can, at that point, do whatever or, get to you because it's your second term. You're about to leave. So he thinks, and then he has had this conversation with other African leaders, and they somehow think it's true that people tend to want to take advantage of you. They think you're about to leave. So
you're not coming back. Yeah.
Right. So he thinks that he as a president, you need up to 3 or 4 terms to be able to, like he said, in your first 2 years, it's a bit, the job is a bit bumpy. You're still trying to settle in. You're still trying to do one of, he gave some really silly, I'm sorry to say, he gave some really silly excuses why he thinks that 2 terms is not enough for a president. Why he thinks that, okay, ruling a country for up to 10, 15 years is the way forward, or it's a better way.
It's a 5-year tenure in Gabon, which means by the time you exhaust your 2 terms in office, you would have been there for 10 years. That's a long time. In any case, who cares whether people think you are weak? People will always think whatever they want to think anyway. We saw late Robert Mugabe, who was there for what, about 4 decades?
Wow.
People think he's wicked. They don't even think, it's one thing for somebody to think you're weak. It's a different kettle of fish when they believe you're wicked. So whether I spent 4 years, whether I spent 10 years, whether I spent 4 decades, people will think what they want to think, because everybody has their own, if you like, key performance indicators that you use. My governor, for instance, comes to mind. There are people who believe the governor has just been there doing nothing.
Right. And
there are some who just genuinely believe it's not about politics for them. They are not even partisan. They just believe this governor is not doing anything for whatever reason. That's where they stand. That's their outlook. That's their assessment. There are those who also believe this governor, he thinks in terms of systems. This governor has been working. This governor has been building systems. You may not see it now, but in the years to come, you will see that this governor has made a tangible difference in the state, that sort of thing. But overall, the point to be made is this. How many African presidents, let's even forget how they got into office for a minute, can we say genuinely have the best interest of their people at heart? Whether they are interacting with their people at home or they are abroad representing their countries, all right? There's something President Tinubu did just a few days ago. He said, look, there's a UNGA coming up now, United Nations General Assembly. It's an annual event. There's a directive, in fact, a presidential directive that not everybody should attend. In fact, that directive, or if you like, advisory, has also been copied to the U.S. Embassy authorities in Nigeria to say, look, any government official who doesn't have direct participation, whose role at the event is not crucial, does not serve the interest of Nigeria, has no business in New York. Because the event is just around the corner. Now, what does that tell you? Is the word of the president saying, look, we've got to keep the main thing the main thing. We're not here for jamboree.
Right.
You can't be running between Abuja and New York. Just, the name of we are representing our government. And you're not bringing any value, yet we're making so much of investment. And he has also said, I came into power on a no excuses basis. Nigerians will not take excuses from me. So me, I'm also not going to take excuses from those I've appointed, because I'm responsible for the appointments I make.
Right.
Nigerians did not pick those people for him. He picked them. Now, what's the point? The point here is, some of the poorest African countries, you need to see the way they carry themselves in New York during events like this, United Nations General Assembly or whatever kind of other events, multilateral events that they have to attend. They show off, they go to the most expensive shops, they check into the most expensive hotels. These are countries where they are still suffering from lack of pipe-borne water. Their maternal health rates is jumping right through the roof. Infrastructure is at its lowest. The economy is in shambles. In fact, they are in a bad place as a country. So these are issues that we need to be reflecting on a daily basis.
Okay, I want to ask a question. Do you think we somehow have a large number of greedy people in Africa, not just the leaders now, because these leaders were one time, common citizens.
They come from amongst us.
Right. So do you think it's somehow a personality thing? Do you think we have greedy people, or we have a wrong mindset and mentality towards life, that we end up having leaders who are, just self-centered and selfish?
I think for me the concern is, you just opened up an angle of the conversation that's not very convenient to talk about, but it is what it is now.
Right.
If we don't talk about it today, we're also going to talk about it tomorrow.
Eventually, right.
The thing is, a people cannot be different from the kind of government that they have. We can argue all night, but that's what it is.
Right.
Let's come to think of it. I I worked somewhere and I had a colleague who told me and my other colleagues that, look, he doesn't want Nigeria to be any better now. That we've had leaders who have come over time to loot the country, whether at the federal level, state or local government, whether appointed or elected, that please, the system has to be dysfunctional or broken until when he gets his turn to also milk the country, to also exploit the country, or if you like, to also rape the country. Now, for some people, that's a joke. For some people, it's just being paranoid. It's just reacting to the system. But it's a mindset. I mean, the good book says, as a man think in his heart, or out of the abundance of the heart. All right. You have no idea how many Nigerians, perhaps there are millions, who think like that every other day. Because they feel, I mean, I told somebody one time, I said, I have never seen a Nigeria that works. So it will appear some of us, in the bid to see a Nigeria that works, whatever that means, they want to take the laws into their hands. They want to go overboard to do that. So to answer your question very directly, yes, most of us are greedy. Most of us don't understand what contentment means. All right. So we think contentment is after we have stolen money. I mean, how do you even wrap your head around the EFCC and other anti-graft agencies coming to tell you somebody stole $7 billion, somebody stole $500 billion, somebody stole $250 billion, somebody bought a house in the UK and they paid £3.8 million in one installment? I mean, if you know how the mortgage system works in England or across the United Kingdom, you understand what it means for you to be told that somebody from sub-Saharan Africa comes to London, buys a house, pays £3.8 million. I mean, if you do that in Naira, I mean, if you convert it to Naira, even at the exchange rate of 10 years ago, you know what that means. But it is what it is. Right. That money was taken away from here. So that person who took that money away from me, amongst other things, other assets that you have abroad or at home, is first a Nigerian, is first a human being before he or she is a minister, a senator, a president, or a governor. That's what it is. So we must begin to look at the generations from behind us. What are we doing to reorientate them? Look at patriotism. I mean, nobody's talking about patriotism. In fact, it's not even fashionable, or to use the word of the ousted Gabonese president, it's not sexy now to talk about patriotism, because it looks like it is dumb to be patriotic, because people are vexed with the president, people are vexed with their governors, people are vexed with their representatives. But what we don't realize is that the president himself, the governors themselves, all the representatives, I mean, the legislators, whether at the federal or state levels, are not more Nigerian than every other person. The only difference is that they have the privilege to serve. But again, the question is, going forward, how will they maximize that opportunity to serve, that privilege to serve in the overall interest of the country? But again, that's something that's replicated across Africa, and we must tackle it from the root of it. Okay, let's look at a few more headlines for you this morning. Kano Nexim signed ₦2 billion MOU on resuscitating exports oriented industries. That's timely for a country that's dealing with paucity of foreign exchange. Again, one of the fundamental issues that must be addressed to be able to fix our foreign exchange segment of the economy is to scale our local production so we can earn dollars. Otherwise, we are going to continue to be an import dependent country, and I'm not going to be the one to tell you how much that gets China and countries across Asia excited, right? 4 ex-presidential candidates visit Ganduje, seek appointments. Let's not go into that in details, but what these gentlemen are saying, I mean, some of the presidential candidates who ran against who ran against President Tinubu, and the other candidates from Labour, Peter Obi, and of course Kwankwaso from NNPP, and Atiku Abubakar from the PDP, paid a courtesy visit to the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress just yesterday, Dr. Umar Ganduje, who also was a governor in Kano, all right, until May 29th. I said, look, I mean, elections are over. Campaign time is, I mean, campaign window has closed. This is not election we're doing. We don't also believe in bad blood election. We don't believe in bitterness. We believe, yes, you can campaign, you can do all you want to do, but you can stay away from bitterness and bad energy, as we call it, and so on and so forth. Yes, as good as that is, the intention of this gentleman has been questioned. Because people are saying, look, we are watching you one eye. You are not doing this necessarily because you believe in the government of President Tinubu. Neither are you doing it for the love of country. You are doing it as part of your hustle efforts. Right. But we can't just judge them now, because we can't see their heart to know what their intentions are. But you also blame those who are questioning their intention, because You see, there's something called sincerity of purpose. Most times, that's where leaders shoot themselves in the foot. You start a project, you roll out an initiative. People are excited. People see some sense in it. They see humanity in it. They believe you really want to do something for the betterment of society. But then they continue to question the sincerity of purpose. For example, we have seen politicians who go to orphanages weeks before election, months before election. There's a state where there's a politician who has built reputation around distributing bags of rice, even though people have also said they are rebagged bags. These are free bags of rice, but how do you criticize the man for rebagging the rice? But you see, in all of this, no matter how much you're investing in doing it, people will continue to question the sincerity behind it, exactly, the motive behind it. Even in law, motive is very important. If somebody is accused of, is alleged to have committed murder, the law will also look at what was the motive. Right. It's one thing for you to commit manslaughter. It's another thing for you to commit outright murder. And then you are talking about motive. Is it self-defense? Did they do it? Or was it willful murder? And so on and so forth. But again, those are legal technicalities. But we're always saying that whatever we do, the motivation has to be for love of country. Right. You do it because you feel Nigeria is in a bad place and that you have capacity or competence or skills to offer, something better to make a difference. Or you just want a piece of the cake. Exactly. Right. And don't forget that every cake does get finished. It's just a matter of time. Right. All right. We know that President Tinubu, being the kind of person he is, judging from what he had done in Lagos, has an eye for talent. So he can start to pick people from even the opposition. At least he has done that with Wike. Yeah. Again, people have said, well, that's was an agreement they had before the election. But it is what it is. Records show clearly that he has appointed somebody from a major opposition party to be part of his government. So he can decide to go pick somebody from a different party as long as he is convinced this person, this guy or this lady has got what it takes to make a difference. But for this gentleman, whatever your motive is, people are watching. You, right? Exactly. People are watching, but just ensure that the goal is to make a difference for the better. Right. Palliatives, rice price spikes as FG states supplies mop-up markets. 50 kg bag records 10,000 naira increase in 10 days. That's 1,000 naira a day increase. Our supply is depleted by high demand traders, inadequate